Okay, so picture a map of the world in the 7th century. It's a time of these massive tectonic shifts in geopolitics.
Huge shift.
You've got the Persian Empire, the Roman Empire, these ancient towering giants that had, been running the show for centuries. And then, almost out of nowhere, this new power rises up in the Arabian Peninsula.
And it doesn't just rise, it explodes. I mean, we're talking about one of the fastest territorial expansions in human history.
Exactly. We are talking about an empire that eventually spanned, 2.2 million square miles?
Something like that, yes.
Stretching from modern-day Libya in the west all the way to the edges of India.
Hmm.
And the man running this whole superpower, the second Caliph of Islam, Umar ibn Al-Khattab, also known as Umar Farouk.
Right. And just for context, because Caliph can be a bit of an abstract term for some people, this isn't just a king. It's not just a pope.
It's a fusion of both.
It is. He's the head of state, the commander-in-chief, and the spiritual leader of the entire community. It's absolute centralized authority.
It is. And usually when we do deep dives into historical figures with that kind of resume, conquerors, emperors, guys who topple civilizations, we end up talking about their palaces.
Of course. Their gold, their armies.
Their harems, and usually their total disconnect from the real world.
Power corrupts, as they say.
That's the one. But today, we're looking at a source. It's a lecture by Pir Ajmal Raza Qadri that presents a leadership style that is, it's almost alien to the modern mind.
It really is.
It just flips the entire script on what power is supposed to look like.
It does. The source actually frames his whole style of governance as the politics of the fear of God. And the central idea here isn't about how Umar conquered land. It's about how he conquered the corruption within himself.
Right.
It's about a ruler who was literally terrified of his own job.
And that's the hook for me. You have a guy whose armies are dismantling the entire Persian Empire, yet the source describes him trembling, like physically shaking because of a complaint from one single elderly woman.
It sounds like hyperbole when you first hear it, doesn't it?
It does.
Like a myth they made up later to make him look good.
Exactly. But as we unpack the anecdotes in this lecture, you realize it wasn't a performance. It was a radical, almost obsessive form of accountability. He believed his authority wasn't a privilege to enjoy.
No, it was a liability, a debt.
A debt he had to pay off every single day.
And that's really the mission of this deep dive. We're going to look at the specific stories, the receipts in a literal sense, that show how a ruler of a superpower maintained a standard of personal responsibility that makes modern governance look, completely different.
So let's get into the evidence. The lecture kind of breaks this down into a few areas: social welfare, economic policy, and family nepotism. And I want to start with that trembling moment, the story of the widow and the debt.
Okay, yeah, this is a famous incident, but the source adds some really specific texture to it. So the setting is Medina, it's nighttime, and Umar is patrolling the streets.
And this is key. He's doing it incognito, right? No guards, no entourage.
Correct, which is a total security nightmare, by the way. But he hears children crying from the small house, a tent. He goes over, he knocks, and an elderly woman answers. She has no idea who he is.
Just some guy in the dark.
Just some guy. And the situation inside is it's grim.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking. She's destitute. The source says she has a pot of water on the fire with stones in it.
Oh, wow.
She's boiling stones just to make the sound of cooking, hoping to trick the kids into thinking food is coming so they'll finally fall asleep from exhaustion.
That is just a brutal image.
It is. And this stranger, Umar, asks her what's wrong. And she tells him, she says she's a widow, there's no food, and she has a debt of 25 dinars.
25 dinars. Just to anchor us, that's a significant amount of gold for a poor person back then.
A huge amount.
Yeah.
And then she drops the hammer. She doesn't know she's talking to the caliph, so she speaks her mind. She explicitly blames the head of state.
She says, I have a complaint against Umar. If he cannot keep news of his people, he should leave the government.
Now, just pause on that for a second. In most empires of that era, or even some places today, if you said that to a royal official, let alone the emperor himself,
you're arrested. Or worse.
Or worse. But Umar's reaction is the key to this whole thing. He doesn't get defensive. He doesn't say, do you know who I am?
Right. I'm a little busy running an empire here.
No. The source says he started trembling. He panicked. He felt the weight of that accusation instantly. He literally ran to the Beit al-Mal, the state treasury and granary.
And he starts packing a sack himself. Flour, dates, fat, clothes. And he takes 25 dinars from his own pocket. But here's the moment that just defines his whole philosophy. His servant, a man named Aslam, sees him lifting this heavy sack onto his own back.
And Aslam does what any good aide would do. He says, "Let me carry this for you, Commander of the Faithful."
And Umar just snaps at him. He refuses. But he refuses with a question that just stops you cold. He asks, "Will you carry my burden on the day of judgment?"
And that is the liability mindset right there.
Yeah.
He didn't see a sack of flour. He saw a spiritual weight. He believed that if he didn't physically carry that food to her right now, he would be spiritually crushed by his negligence in the afterlife. Her hunger was his personal failure.
Not a systemic issue, his failure. So he carries it back, sweating, breathless, and he doesn't just drop it off like a delivery.
No, he cooks for them.
He cooks the food for her. The source describes him blowing on the fire with smoke getting in his beard, making sure the kids actually eat.
And the twist, which is so cinematic, is that she still doesn't know who he is.
I love this part.
She's eating the food he cooked, and she looks at him and says, "You are so kind. You should be the Caliph instead of that man Umar."
The irony is just incredible. But this is where it gets really, really interesting, and it's a detail I hadn't focused on before this source. He doesn't just walk away happy, he asks her for a receipt.
A receipt of forgiveness. This is fascinating.
A literal paper trail for his soul.
Yeah. He asks the woman to write a note to certify that she has forgiven Umar for his negligence.
Yeah.
And just then, Ali and Abdullah ibn Masud, two very prominent figures, they arrive. They see Umar, and they address him properly, Commander of the Faithful. And the woman just freezes.
She must have been terrified. She realizes she's just been trashing the most powerful man in the world to his face.
Absolutely. But Umar isn't looking for an apology from her. He ignores all the protocol. He just asks Ali and Abdullah to witness the document she wrote. He wants it notarized, basically.
And what he does with that document is wild. He tells Ali, "Keep this. When I die, put this document in my burial shroud."
Think about that. He wanted to be buried with the paperwork. He wanted to be able to prove, look, there was a gap in my governance, a hungry widow, but I closed the loop. Here's the signature.
It's extreme bureaucratic accountability for the afterlife.
It is. And it really sets the stage for how he handled the entire economy. I mean, if he's that stressed about one household and 25 dinars, imagine how he felt about the national treasury.
Well, let's pivot right to that. The source moves on to what we might call lifestyle surveillance. And this is where it gets a little controversial, I think, by modern standards.
The meat tax, basically.
Right. The source says Umar would actually monitor what people were buying in the markets. And if he saw a citizen buying meat 2 days in a row, he would intervene.
2 days in a row. It sounds so intrusive, doesn't it?
Yeah, like, let me enjoy my steak in peace, please.
Exactly. But what was the logic behind it?
So you have to understand the economic context, right? The community in Medina had pretty limited resources at first. And as the empire expanded and wealth flowed in, you started to see wealth inequality creeping in.
Okay, so this wasn't just about being a health nut. It was about resource distribution.
Precisely. His logic was, if you have enough disposable income to eat meat daily while your neighbors are eating lentils or maybe even going hungry, then you are hoarding wealth. You're consuming more than your fair share.
So what was the penalty?
He'd increase their tribute or their taxes. He'd essentially say, you have excess wealth. Fine, that excess belongs to the community. It was a direct check on lifestyle inflation. He wanted the standard of living to rise for everyone, not just for a few elites.
And speaking of elites, he applied this even more strictly to his own governors.
Oh, the story of the governor and the camel?
Yes. This is like a classic undercover boss moment, but with way higher stakes. A governor started dressing like a king, wearing fine silks, fancy robes.
Which, to be fair, is how most governors in the Persian or Roman empires would look. It was expected.
Right. But Umar saw this, and he just wasn't having it. He summoned the governor.
And he didn't just fire him, he humiliated him.
It was what you'd call a corrective punishment. Umar literally stripped him of the silk clothes and dressed him in tat, this rough burlap or coarse wool. And then he made him graze camels.
From governor to camel herder.
Because the message was, leadership is not about status. If you think this job is about wearing silk and looking important, you've lost the plot. Go sweat with the animals until you remember what humble service feels like.
It's such a brutal lesson in humility. But, it's one thing to be tough on your employees or your citizens. It's a whole other thing to be tough on your own family.
Oh, yeah.
And this is where most leaders, I think, historical and modern, usually fail. The whole Nepo baby thing.
The first family problem, for sure. And the source is adamant about this.
Yeah.
Umar was actually harsher on his family than on anyone else. He knew that corruption usually finds its way in through the home.
People try to bribe the kids or the spouse to get to the leader.
Exactly. And there are two stories here that just blew my mind. First, the perfume story with the Queen of Iran.
Right, the Queen of Iran and Umar's wife.
So unpack this for us.
Yeah.
Umar's wife sends a small diplomatic gift to the Queen of Iran. Just some perfume, I think, maybe a dress. Simple stuff. She paid for it herself, cost about 1 dinar.
Okay, just a gesture of goodwill. And in return, the queen sends back a whole chest of jewels. Necklaces, pearls, really expensive things.
So when it arrives in Medina, the courier brings it to Umar's house. And Umar sees this pile of treasure and just asks, "What is this?" His wife explains, "It's a return gift. It's mine."
And Umar shuts that down immediately. He asks a question that just cuts through all the excuses. He says, would she have sent you these jewels if you weren't the caliph's wife?
Ouch. That's the question, isn't it?
It's the only question that matters. If the answer is no, then it's not a personal gift.
It's a state gift.
So what was the verdict?
He told her, take 1 dinar's worth, your original investment, and give the rest to the Beit al-Mal, to the state treasury.
He's basically saying you cannot monetize your proximity to power.
You don't get to leverage the brand of the caliphate for personal gain.
Yeah.
And he did the exact same thing to his sons, Abdullah and Ubaydullah.
The Egypt trade trip. This one's even crazier to me because they actually worked for the money.
They did. They went to Egypt to trade, just like normal merchants. They took their own capital, they bought goods, they sold goods.
But when they get there, the governor of Egypt, who knows exactly who they are, goes around introducing them to everyone as the sons of the commander of the faithful.
Which is like instant networking gold, right? People want to buy from them just to curry favor. The governor probably gives them the best spot in the market.
So they come back to Medina with these massive profits, way above the market rate. They're probably feeling pretty good about themselves. Look, Dad, we crushed it.
And Umar audits them.
Oh?
Right there, he asks, did every single merchant in your caravan make this much profit margin?
And they have to say, well, no, just us.
So Umar figures out what happened. He tells them, you traded on my name. You didn't make this money because of your business skill. You made it because you're my sons.
So he just confiscates the profit.
All of it. He let them keep their principal, the money they started with, but every dinar of profit went straight to the state. The source even says he threatened them with the whip if they didn't hand it over.
Wow.
He argued the extra profit belonged to the Muslims because it was generated using the influence of the caliphate.
That's incredible. He was protecting the brand of the state from being diluted by his own family. That's a level of conflict of interest management we still struggle with today.
And that brings us to the domestic sphere. The source makes a really interesting point about parenting here. It argues that you just can't have this level of public integrity if you're a hypocrite at home.
The speaker uses a very modern analogy for this, the phone-scrolling parent.
Yeah, he gets very real here. He says, look at parents today. They're sitting on the couch, scrolling through TikTok or whatever, and yelling at their kids, go read a book, go pray, go do something useful.
The old do as I say, not as I do.
And it just never works. The source argues that Umar's children didn't respect his laws because he gave good lectures. They respected them because they saw him crying in prayer at 3 in the morning. They saw him eating the same rough bread he fed to the poor.
There's this really specific, almost surprising anecdote about this involving Uthman Ghani, who became the 3rd caliph.
Yes, this is after Umar had passed away. Uthman actually married one of Umar's widows.
Which, historically, was a way to support the widows of your friends and companions. It wasn't that uncommon.
True. But Uthman had a very specific ulterior motive. He told her, I didn't marry you for your youth or for your beauty. I married you to ask you one question. What was Umar like when the doors were locked?
Wow, he was conducting a posthumous audit on his predecessor's private life.
He was. He wanted to know if the public persona was just a mask. He asked, how did he worship at home? And she told him about the weeping, the sleepless nights worrying about the state of the people. It confirmed that the public strength came from this immense private vulnerability.
He wasn't performing for the crowd. He was performing for God, even when no one was watching.
Exactly.
Now, towards the end of the lecture, the speaker, Pir Ajmal Raza Qadri, he pivots. He stops talking about history and starts talking about us, about the modern world. And honestly, he is scathing.
He does not hold back. He draws a direct line between Umar's austerity and the extravagance of many modern leaders.
He mentions the planes.
The state aircraft, yeah. He talks about leaders using a massive state plane just to transport their horses for polo or to ferry personal gifts around the world. He contrasts burning millions of dollars of taxpayer money with Umar confiscating a necklace from his own wife.
And he talks about debt. This part really resonated with me. He says modern governments celebrate when they get a loan.
Yeah, the package mentality. You see it in the news all the time. Leaders go on TV, "Good news, everyone. We've secured $1 billion loan package." They treat debt as if it's revenue. They treat it as an achievement.
Whereas Umar trembled. He physically shook at a 25 dinar debt for one single widow.
The speaker calls it a spiritual catastrophe versus a bureaucratic achievement. It's a complete inversion of values. Umar saw debt as a chain around his neck in the afterlife. Modern leaders see it as a way to kick the can down the road.
And his conclusion is that this rot, it trickles down.
The head of the family concept again. If the ruler is corrupt, the governors will be. If the governors are corrupt, the local official starts taking bribes. If the father is on his phone all day, the kid will be on his phone all day.
So you can't fix a society from the bottom up if the example at the very top is broken.
Right. Umar's effectiveness wasn't just his laws. It was that nobody could accuse him of hypocrisy. When he told a governor to wear simple clothes, that governor knew Umar was probably wearing clothes that were even more patched and worn out. You just can't argue with that kind of moral authority.
It's a heavy takeaway. We started this deep dive talking about a massive empire, about maps and conquests, but we're ending it talking about personal responsibility.
Because that's what Umar's life really represents in this source. It's not about the map. It's about the mirror.
So here's the question we want to leave you with today. We talked about that receipt, the forgiveness note that Umar wanted placed in his grave.
The proof of accountability.
Right. Most of us, we try to keep our work life and our private life separate. We think what we do in the office stays in the office. But this source argues they're one and the same. So if you had to carry a physical receipt for every interaction you've had with someone who depends on you, an employee, a student, your own child, and those receipts were going into your permanent file.
Would you have a stack of forgiveness notes? Or would you have a stack of unresolved complaints?
That is definitely something to think about. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.
See you next time.